So that's cool. That's what I've been doing. That's my short-term thinking. My longer-term thinking, Alana has been hounding me for months about talking, like putting down my thoughts on like a longer term. Where are we going? What is the product that we're building? What's the vision that we have? And so I sat down and wrote some things that are internally work in progress. And I'll go through them. I started with our vision statement. So Loomio Cooperative exists to create a world where it's easy for anyone to participate in decisions that affect them. And when I broke that down, I was like, okay, we're going to create something. It's going to take a long time because creating worlds takes a long time. It's going to be easy. Like we're going to build a simple thing and anyone can participate in it, which means that many other people have been involved. And so the three most important things about the thing that we're building is that it's simple, that it can last a long time, and that it gives anyone the ability to participate. And I'll talk about kind of the technical side of that, but I think that this also applies to the user side when we're talking about kind of the culture around the tool that we're building. One random noticing is that a lot of the time, most of the time when we write code, we're ratcheting this up at the expense of these two things. So when we propose a new feature, we're like, oh, wouldn't it be great if you could do this? And that's true, but it also necessarily increases the complexity of the code, making it less simple, and also makes it less long lasting. Because we have this kind of curve of when you write software, it starts super simple because there's no code involved. And then you write a whole bunch of code and it gets more complicated. And then there's this decay function that happens where as you write more code, it gets harder and harder and harder to write code. So there's diminishing returns until, some magical point in the future where it's like impossible to write new code because everything is so complicated. And we want to try and avoid that for as long as we can. So here are some things that I think are true. First off, the current paradigms for productivity and power are massively broken. I think we can agree on that. I think that social change is an exceptionally hard problem. I talked about this a little bit at the members meeting. I talked about our little Brontosaurus graph here, and the idea that when we first start off building something, there's a whole bunch of like development and process kind of work that goes in. And as we go on and kind of figure out what we're talking about and figure out what our process is and what our business is and the code that we've written, we kind of like go down the tail, but the tail is super, super long. So we write a whole bunch of code and we start making fewer and fewer changes, and then the work changes, and the work changes into convincing people of our new idea that it's effective and that it can help them, and that this is really important work as well. And this tail is so long, which means that we have to have software that lasts a really long time in order for it to survive until we get to the end of the tail. And I also have this idea that you can be on the tail, and then if like we have a goal for having massive impact, global, worldwide impact, that's kind of quite a bit reflected in our vision statement, right? We're going to create a world where it's easy for anyone to participate in a decision that's effective. And that's a very wide ranging vision. And in order for that to happen, we have to have a stroke of luck. We have to have like a catalyzing event or a series of catalyzing events. And the only way to maximize the probability of that happening is having a tool that's really simple and really long lasting, so that we can spend as much time as we possibly can sort of out here on the edge of the tail, convincing people of the quality of our work, so that those catalyzing events can happen. I also think that people want to help us. They want to help us fix the thing because they know that the structures for paradigms and power are super broken. And I recently watched this talk by Clay Shirky, which is really great, about cognitive surplus. He talks about Ushahidi, the mapping software that they used in Africa. And he talks about cognitive surplus, which is like the idea that now that we have technology that connects people, there's a whole bunch of excess like energy or stigmergy in the world. And that is available. And all we have to do is reach out and grab it. But the barriers to helping are very high, right? So we require a specific blend of context and expertise and energy in order to enable folks to help. You've got to be the right person at the right time to have influence, which is the result of an underlying power structure. And we need to get better at allowing people to come in and leave their mark on the software. I think that we've turned a lot of people away recently. And so we have to look at our process and go, what is the thing that's missing that's allowing people like Chad Whitaker and Marcus Culler and Aaron Thornton and Derek and all these other people to come in and really leave their mark on the software because they have quality ideas as well. Okay, so those are some thoughts. What can help with these things? I talk about Peter Hitchens a lot. Peter Hitchens' organization talks about the Zen of Zero, which refers to their culture of minimalism. And there's a really great quote in their handbook that goes, we add power by removing complexity rather than exposing new functionality, saying that the power of your tool is actually in its simplicity, not in its features. And that by adding features, you're actually making your tool worse, making it last for a less long time. And the reason that is because when you write software, you're putting ideas into code. And if you do this over a long period of time, you're going to end up with a lot of bad ideas in your code, because when you put ideas into code, many of them aren't very good. And and many of them are unintended, right? So you may think that you're putting a great idea into your code, and you may be, but you're also putting 4 or 5 bad ideas in at the same time. So putting things in has a cost, and taking things out has an even greater cost. So the easier that we can make it to put things in and take things out, the better off we'll be, and the longer our tool will last, and the more simple it will be. And one thing that can help with this is modularity, right? So we're dealing with a really broad problem. There's lots of different types of decisions. There's lots of different communities, and we're trying to make a simple thing that handles all that. And the best way to do that is basically to build a Lego set. And a Lego set is something that has a base that's very simple, but then also comes with a lot of building blocks. And then critically, it also comes with a book of instructions of how to build your Lego set to, make it look like a castle, or make it look like an underwater fort, or make it look like a Star Wars thing, or whatever, that we can package these things together. And that means that people can build their own solutions to their problems. I also think it's important to say that we can't presume to know their problems as well as they do. That's a viewpoint of privilege. But we can presume to know some tools that are helpful to people and provide them to them, and then they can build their own solution from them. Open source software can help. Open source software gives us the unfair advantage of having many, many eyes on our code. This allows it to be much more long-lasting and much more simple, because it becomes under greater scrutiny, and it also allows for an easier transfer of power. I'm a big fan of the metaphor code as an organism, and also of Conway's law. Conway's law is the idea that when you write code, when an organization or person writes code, it reflects their reality. And so if we don't involve a whole lot of viewpoints in our code, we're going to deliver something that's super reflective of our own privileged, small New Zealand reality. And so in order for our tool to really, really last a long time, it has to have lots of different viewpoints coming into it. This is why I think that the open source ecosystem is so important. And I know that we haven't invested in it too much, but if we are going to last for a really long time, long enough to have major impact, we're going to have to invest in that. And one of the best ways that we can invest in it is documentation. If you get a Lego set and it doesn't have a little book with it that tells you how to build the thing, you're never going to build the thing. So we have to really invest in our open source community, and we also really have to invest in our documentation. Documentation doesn't actually have to be docs, but it does have to be clear instructions on ways to do things, whether that's writing how-tos, or whether that's having an active community that you can engage with, or whether that's like actual proper documentation. It doesn't really matter. We just need to make sure that people have access to tools that tell them, that share the knowledge. And so the long-term overarching vision is that Loomio survives past being a business and ends up being a tool that people contribute to because they need to change it in order to serve their needs, either through a robust set of customizability options, a plugin ecosystem, or an API that allows communications between instances, tools, and whatever else is on the internet by then. That's like maybe 25% of what I've been thinking about, I guess, but I think it captures like kind of the core of the thing that I really, really want to build. So yeah, thank you for listening.